Alrighty, today we're going to be looking at a system that could be very concerning not only to Florida but also to the Gulf states, pretty much all the way from Louisiana to really Cuba. This entire area is going to be on high alert for what has now been designated 95L by the National Hurricane Center. Before I do start off, I do want to clarify, we're not going to be looking at Epsilon today as it is now moving away from any land impacts and will really just stay out to sea and do something very similar to this and remain a hurricane probably until this mark right here and then turn extratropical. But really quickly, current winds of 85 miles per hour still bringing some fairly bad conditions for Bermuda. Alrighty, so now 95L have now been giving a 70% chance for within 24 hours, or for within 48 hours and the next 5 days. Now, as you can see, they're expecting it to develop anywhere in this area here, so they don't have a really big area of potential development, and they do say a tropical depression is likely to form in a couple of days. Now, right now, it's fairly split because, as we remember, we had this disturbance. It had a 10 to 30%. Then they dropped it to 0%. Then they brought it back. And then the original thing, this was the original, disturbance cone, right? I think we all remember that. The X was still the same location. Then the X was right here. And then they had it going like this. That was their disturbance cone. Then they had the X around here. And it was, their cone was like that. So still the same thing. And now, so what's really interesting is we went from that disturbance cone going literally like this to it going in the Gulf. We went from it going straight east to it going northwest. So already it just shows how uncertain this is going to go. But what really the reason for that, it didn't get pulled by Epsilon as much because it's been really staying in that general area. We were expecting it to really start moving a lot more, and for the past couple of days, it's been staying in that northwestern Caribbean, which has allowed it to blow up. If we look at that latest satellite imagery, you can see we have a fairly organized system with quite a bit of convection associated with it, quite a bit of thunderstorm activity. Obviously, we have this big blow up here on the western side, and then we have the one on the kind of southern side. It's kind of split in half, but it seems to be connected in the middle. And if we go back here, it's currently right there, right? So if we come back here, that means they think the center is, about right stab in the middle of there, which seems accurate. And if we look at this, we do have some easterly wind. We might have some low-level westerly wind. So it does look like we have some kind of rotation to it. They are saying it's a broad area of low pressure. So we just need to get a little bit more organization there. Really, that thunderstorm activity, maybe try to wrap around here on that eastern side, as well as that western side, around that low pressure center, and get a little bit of a more centered blow up of convection over that center. Now, if we actually look at the storm itself, again, you can see that similar thing. You can see that rotation on the south here, rotation to the side here, and then you can see that very similar thing here. So what we're looking at here is, again, a very similar situation where, again, we have that area of thunderstorm activity wrapping around. Low-level cloudness, as you can see on the low level, you can see those clouds moving that way here on the low level. You can see the clouds moving this way on the low level. And then other than that, on the upper level, it's moving a little bit differently. So also we definitely have a little bit of wind shear, but not too much. But generally, we do have some broad area of low pressure of rotation, especially on the low level. Alrighty, so now looking at the track rise, it is so messed up, guys. The track rise, it just makes no sense. But as you can see, in the next 24 hours, it's not going to move at all. Okay, it's pretty much not going to move at all. But then, here's what we do have going on. We have a little bit of a split. So the first possible is that it starts to really go eastward and then goes back up over Florida here. Sorry about that. So that would bring it in this general direction and then goes back north near Florida. Second thing, goes the same thing, but turns back northwest a little bit sooner and curves into the Florida Panhandle. Third, the third option, it continues moving northwest, doesn't turn east, and goes toward Louisiana. So this is all the options. Now, keep in mind, if it takes the orange and the blue here, it has the less chance of developing. It's going to have lots of wind shear, colder temperatures, and a cold front coming through, which is going to sweep it away. Either way, it probably won't be going here because the cold front should move it more towards Florida. So, believe it or not, yeah, we're looking at a Florida impact with the system. Now, whether it's going to be going like this, curving back to Florida Panhandle, possible. We have fairly warm waters, a little bit of colder waters in the Panhandle, and a little bit of wind in the northern Panhandle. So it does have some time to strengthen. It would have about 96 to 120 hours to strengthen or so, which, is enough to get to a tropical storm. It's enough to get a hurricane. Of course, we're not saying it's going to get to a hurricane yet. If it takes this way, a little bit less time. Obviously, it only has 72 hours or so to strengthen because then it would be, over land. But really, the worst case scenario was probably for this to go like this. But for strength-wise, if it went like that, like the original models developed it, it would be a stronger system, but probably out to sea. If we look at the spaghetti models here, very similar situation, but we have just a little bit more stress. Again, lots taking to Florida. And so, of course, taking to the northern Gulf Coast. Now, if we look at here again, you can see very similar situation, but just most of the models here really taking it. The consensus now is it. Let me show you guys the consensus here, in which is now likely scenarios for it to take a turn like this, turn back like that, and then actually make land for the Florida Panhandle. Now, if this one was named today, right? Let's say it was named today, and I had to make a code for it. This would probably be my current code for it, just because that is what looks to be the most likely scenario. And this is really, this right now is my track for the system. I do think it will head that way at the moment. Okay, so intensity-wise, you guys remember how I said it had 96 to 120 hours. Here is hour 96. Here's hours 120. Do you remember how I said it's going to be encountering wind shear by hour 120? Well, look. Half of the models bring it to tropical storm status. Slow strengthening, goes up to 50 miles per hour, and then by hour 96 weakens because it gets into that wind shear and those colder water temperatures. Other half of the models, they don't develop it. So right now, 30 miles per hour, expected to become a tropical storm maybe in the next 36 hours. Only half of them develop it. But again, I think it will become a tropical storm. You guys tell me what you guys think, though. Alright, so looking at the wind shear wise, as you can see right now, it is in like 15 to 20 knots ish of wind shear at most, which is favorable. You can see that system right here is favorable. But as it moves, if we follow what I said, what they're expecting it to do, they're expecting it to go like this. So as it moves in the Gulf, you can clearly see it's going to be going in 60 to 70 knots of wind shear. But we've got to remember, if we remember Delta, it was expected to move into wind shear, and then the wind shear obviously drops. So we could see this clarifying pass, and the wind shear may or may not drop as it moves in that area, but it still has a good, favorable wind shear for the time being, where it does have some time to strengthen. And as you can see right now, Epsilon is in 40 to 50 knots of wind shear, and it was in wind shear, and it did form. So, wind shear could just not affect it. Alrighty. So now we're looking at the European model, and here's already, you can see our low pressure system. This is by tomorrow morning. You can see that low pressure system located here. So they're going with a little bit of southerly track. Some models taking a little bit more than north of that. This model again, right, is taking it a little bit more northerly. Then obviously it already takes that turn east, like we've been talking about. So it moves like this, and it takes that sharp turn. Still a low pressure, and then it actually, as you can see here, moves near the Keys, but then does something very interesting. What it does here is that we actually have a low pressure system forming here, which actually, believe it or not, it goes like this and then tracks it back down. If we look back here, look at it, follow it. You see, low pressure system, and then actually curves it back down. And now what this actually brings it is the European model, very, very interestingly, actually shows it curving to the west, potentially towards Mexico, towards Texas. So it's actually a little bit of an outlier, actually, believe it or not. But look at that. It actually, still as a rotation, actually shows it heading towards Texas. So the European model brings the storm like this and actually brings it straight for Houston. So a very interesting scenario. Now, as you can see, as it gets on that shore, it's a lot of a weaker. We have a much better organized system near Cuba than in this area. As you can see, they're very, very less organized system. If we take it back to where it was near Cuba, you can see that defined low pressure center, and then as they move throughout the Gulf, it really just kind of falls apart, potentially back into an open wave. Either way, right now, we're not looking at the intensity really. We're really looking to try to figure out the track. So this is the European model. Very interesting. Now, as we look into the GFS, let's see what the GFS is showing. Once again, GFS has a storm moving near Cuba, potentially. This is by Sunday, so we have a slower moving storm. By Sunday, still south of Cuba. As you can see here, by Monday, still south of Cuba, so we have a much slower moving storm. And then by Tuesday, this storm actually, very, very interestingly, it actually never moves. By Sunday, or by Monday, this is what the GFS has it doing. It has it kind of looping and actually moves into, believe it or not, like I said, it actually moved into Mexico here, which is extremely, extremely surprising, but it actually moves into a little bit of an outlier again. It actually moves into Mexico here, crosses Mexico, and actually reforms into a potential another low level. Again, heading for Louisiana, heading for the Texas area, and makes landfall in Louisiana. So an extremely weird situation. We have this where it kind of goes like this. So if we compare, this is the European model, this is the GFS. Very weird. Very, very weird two models there. So we're going to have to see how this all plays out, but this is obviously we just really don't know where this goes. The possibilities right now are really this far out of the table here. This is how big our cone is currently, with most of the models obviously bringing it that way, but some models still taking it towards Texas, some taking towards Louisiana, some, again, even taking it towards the East Coast. So we're going to have to track this all the way through and see how it's going to be playing out the next couple of days, but definitely monitoring near Cuba, monitoring in Mexico, monitoring right now more Florida, but definitely you guys should be paying attention to Louisiana, Texas, even Mississippi and Alabama could be getting some impacts by this. So we're definitely left to see this how it will play. I'll have more updates as the system develops. I'll see you guys in the next one.